So what is some advice you would give to a new agent, right? Somebody who's just getting started, because it sounds like you've been through everything.
He's like, Doug, it's gonna hurt either way. So just keep doing it. And it always just like stuck with me, and it just like, it makes sense. Like, it's gonna hurt either way.
The person that gets there isn't gonna stop when they get there.
No doubt.
Right? And that's the difference. And I think that's the difference in the mindset.
I got disappointed.
Of course.
I was down on myself. You know, I was pissed off at myself and where I was. And you were not handed
I
this.
wanted to be lucky.
You wanted to be lucky, but like, why are we so scared of something that's never happened yet?
Yeah.
You know, you give an agent a set of leads and they're not thinking about how much money they can make. They're thinking about how much debt they might have.
Welcome to my show of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, where we hear from regular people who got tired of living their ordinary lives and were not afraid to make that jump.
You gotta be different. You can't be doing what everyone else is doing. You gotta create action. You gotta create momentum. So I'm looking for demand and I'm looking for mentorship because I wanted to know everything my mentor knew.
People who are just like you and me.
My name is Dave Price. I'm going to be interviewing Doug Blake here of the Blake Group. Doug Blake made over $800,000 last year, issued over 10,000 policies, and submitted over $7 million in business. Welcome, Doug.
How you doing? Thank you.
Good, man. I'm glad that you took some time out of your busy schedule to come out here. I'm going to be interviewing insurance agents, professionals, trying to put some value out there to you. So please subscribe to my channel. And let me see what I can do for you guys. So Doug, man, obviously, you're a super hard worker, right? You can't have those numbers without working. Like, where did that start? Where did you get this work ethic from to be able to accomplish these numbers?
So that's a really good question. And, you know, I think it's really hard to pinpoint exactly where it came from. It's just kind of always been in me. I like to give a lot of credit to my father who, you know, always had a side job. You know, I remember when I was a little kid, on the weekends, we'd go do side jobs together. Like, he'd just take me because, you know, when you got to hustle, you got to make money, you know, when you got a family and stuff and you're growing up. And we'd go and I learned how to weld and learned how to, you know, fix these, they call them dock plates, like these things that tractor trailers back into at warehouses and stuff like that. Okay. And we'd go on the weekends when we fix those things. And, you know, my mom would work during the day and then at night, and my father would work at night. Like, so like there was always just like around me, like everybody just always worked hard, you know. We were never, you know, wealthy, you know, but we were also never deprived of anything growing up, you know. But I also knew that in order to get what I needed or that I wanted as a kid, my family, my parents, they worked hard, you know. So I'd like to kind of say that that's where it all started, but there was always some part of me that always wanted more, you know. My first job, I had a paper route when I was a kid, if you really want to kind of call that a job. I mean, maybe that's where my door knocking came about, you know, because I remember knocking on people's doors asking for 45 cents or 75 cents to collect the money for the paper for the week and, you know, things like that. And I don't know why that, like, I wanted that or I did that. You know, I remember also my really first technical job was I worked at McDonald's. My neighbor was working at McDonald's as a kid.
It's hard work, man.
I thought it was neat because I'm like, dude, all the free chicken nuggets you can eat, you know? And we ate a lot of chicken nuggets too, by the way. But I remember I had to wait until I was 15 because back then you couldn't legally have a job until you were 15. So I was waiting for my 15th birthday so I can apply for a job. So like I always worked. Even when I went to college, I always had a full-time job. Can't really pinpoint it, but it's just kind of always been engraved in me that you got to work for a living.
I feel like you just don't like sitting still.
That also too.
You just don't like sitting still. All right, so you went to college. What did you go to college for?
So I started at Ocean County Community College, and I didn't know what I wanted really, but business sounded pretty cool, you know? So I started off trying to get an associate's degree in business administration. So associate's degree usually takes you 2 years. So it took me 4 years and a summer class because I had a house full of old friends that we lived with on the beach, and it just, you know, it is what it is. And then I went on to Stockton College down by Atlantic City, and I switched to business finance. And I finally got a degree in business finance, and I had a minor in economics.
So then from college, I know you didn't get right into the insurance industry. What was the path after college?
So after college, I was dating my wife, Rosa. And
What amazing wife she is.
thank you. Glad we got that on camera. I agree. So we were dating, and her father, we were dating, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years or something like that at that time. And her father wanted to move to Florida, and it was a tough time because like we're at that point in our relationship where, things are serious. It's like, do you walk away because she's moving to California and or to Florida and try to have a long distance relationship that is never going to work? Or, does she stay and don't go with her family, or do I go down there too? So her father offered me a job partnering with him in a mortgage company. So when I graduated college, he offered me a job. We moved down to Florida, and literally I graduated college in early August. I take like one extra summer class. And at the end of August, me and Rosa moved down to Florida, and I helped her father open a mortgage company down here.
And from my understanding, you did really well in the mortgage industry.
We did really, really good. We were very fortunate that, we moved down here in 2004, so the real estate business was kind of popping, so it was pretty easy to kind of get up and running because there was so much business for everybody. And so you kind of couple that with, a really good understanding of the business and a lot of hard work, and we did very well.
All right, and then what? 2008 came, right?
I don't remember the exact dates, but something like that, and everything crashed, and we tried to hang in there as long as we could. We were doing all those, they called them subprime loans, those loans where you kind of were able to lie about your income. As long as you have good credit, you could basically buy whatever you wanted to buy. And you didn't have to verify anything. So once that all stopped, that was 99% of our business. So we switched and we started doing like government type of loans, FHA loans, VA loans, and things like that. And then kind of got into reverse mortgages. And we kind of rode that wave for, I don't know, a couple of years, started trying to get into the loan modifications and things like that, and the short sales and the foreclosures. But, you just got to a point where you're just not happy with what you're doing, and it wasn't fun anymore.
So how did you go from that to getting your insurance license? How did that all transpire?
So I was in a networking group called BNI, and it was a really unique kind of concept. So these networking groups meet once a week. There's only one person per profession. So one lawyer, one doctor, one insurance agent, one mortgage guy. So I was the mortgage guy, and a guy that used to be in the mortgage business he was the health insurance guy, So he's like, hey man, Doug, I know this guy. I think you'd be good at this. You should think about getting your license. So I went and got my insurance license. And the guy that taught the insurance school was a broker.
Okay.
So I didn't know any better. So I got my license through him, and then I signed up with his little IMO. And that's kind of how it all started.
And at that point, you were a bag of tricks, right? You're doing a little bit of everything.
Well, I tried, but I remember when I was in school, and I'm like, oh man, I could sell somebody car insurance, life insurance, health insurance, this insurance, that. I thought I was gonna like sit down with someone like you and walk out of the door with 13 policies for your whole family.
So you made the same mistake most agents do when they first start. They think the more I have, the better.
Yeah, exactly. And I found out very, very quickly that, one, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and there was way too much to learn. I didn't have enough time to learn it. And the biggest thing was I didn't have anybody to talk to.
Right.
I didn't know where to start. I had no leads. I had nothing. So I kind of did that it didn't last long. And I was doing it part-time because I was still kind of closing out the mortgage stuff. I wanted to get out, but I was still making some money. So I couldn't just, walk away. So I kind of did a little bit of both. And I just, for like maybe 6 months, not even.
Okay, so you got your license, you started as a broker. A lot of people do it. It sounds like a really good place to be with all the products. You realize there was way too much to learn. Yeah. So how did you pivot from that? Because I know a lot of times what agents do is it's like the ego stops them, right? It's like, no, I picked the right thing. No, I know what I'm doing. And they try to figure out how to make that work, right? But what you did is you had the ability to say, okay, this isn't working. Let me hold my ego for a second and let me pivot. So how did that happen?
So the same guy that signed me up had just started with a company called Lincoln Heritage.
Okay.
You know, and I didn't know nothing about, or I didn't know anything about the insurance business, really. Like, I didn't know what your contract was supposed to be. Like, I didn't know, you know, what a good or a bad product looked like. I didn't know anything. But the only thing he told me says, Doug, we just got set up with this new company. That whole deal that we're doing over here with this other IMO, we're kind of like putting that on hold right now. If you want to keep doing it, you can keep doing it. But we got this company that has leads and they'll pay you the next day.
Sign me
That's
up.
all I needed to hear.
Sign me up.
I didn't ask how much are the leads. I didn't ask what am I going to get paid. I didn't know anything about renewals. I didn't know how it all worked, but all I knew is that they had the leads and they'll pay me the next day. And I hit the ground running.
So of course, Lincoln Heritage, you know, a lot of people know that's they're a carrier. They focus on one thing, one product.
Yeah.
Like you said, they have the leads. So what was it like switching from I'm going to do everything to like, oh, there's all I have to do?
You know, like mentally, no big deal because I was having no success.
Right.
So for me, like, it's not working, try something new. Like for me, it's always been pretty easy to pivot. Now, if I was having a lot of success, maybe that might be a little bit more difficult to grasp, to pivot and make that change, but I wasn't, you know? And even nowadays, I talk to people on a daily basis and it just boggles my mind how they hold on to these things where they make no money.
Right.
And when you have people like us that are doing so well, like you would not follow their lead. And when I saw people at this other company making so much money, I'm like, there's no way that this guy or this girl's better than me. Yeah. Like if they can do it, there's no doubt that I can do it. So I just got to follow the system. Success leaves trails. I got to follow those trails, you know, pick up, you know, what I can get and just keep my head down and go to work, you know? And it's just one of them things that you just do when you know you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, one of my first questions to you was, does somebody really make six figures their first 12 months? And the reason I asked that is my thought process is as long as someone else can do it, I can do it. Right. I might have to work harder than them, but that was it. It gave me that model to run. So, all right, cool. So now you're at Lincoln Heritage. How was the learning curve? You know, how do you, because you're a great producer at Lincoln.
Not always.
Not always.
Not always. So we started, I remember, again, just kind of rewinding just a touch. So when we first got on, they said, well, I'm like, man, I don't have all this money to pay for leads. Oh, don't worry about it. We finance those leads. We just take it out of your paycheck. Okay, that's cool. But we're not going to finance any leads until you write 2 deals. Okay, well, again, now I'm back to, I don't have anybody to talk to. And you can't write yourself or your family. It's got to be someone else. I'm like, well, geez, like now what?
Now you got to work.
You know, now I got to like figure this the heck out. And you know, I scraped for a little bit and I got the 2 deals. They weren't big deals by any means, but I got them and I was able to finance leads. And you know, it was really, really tough in the beginning. Remember I said that they kind of switched IMOs from this like large IMO to Lincoln.
Right.
So there was a lot of people coming at the same time. Now I was part-time, right? So I definitely I didn't get as much attention as I needed. So like everybody that got trained in the field and went out, I never got that.
You got the part-time treatment.
I got the part-time treatment. I got the like.
They gave you what you gave them.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like a ripoff.
You know, so I went out there and I just had to kind of figure it out myself based on what they told me. But you know, if you're an agent that's watching this that maybe is new in this business, you understand what I'm saying. When you get out there and everything that your mentors tell you, it's like, what the hell? Like, this is crazy. Like, they told me just to get leads and go to work. So I didn't have much of a direction. I got out there, people slamming doors in your face. I never filled that card out, this, that, and the other deal. And I'm like, what am I doing here? But in the back of my mind, Doug, these people are making money. Like, you got more to learn. And I kept trying to learn. I try to just get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And I got to a point where I was so behind on lead debt that they wouldn't even finance me leads anymore. So I literally said, well, the heck with leads for now. I'm just going to go knock on doors because that doesn't cost anything but my time. So for 2 weeks straight, I parked my car in a neighborhood not far from here. And I just knocked on doors until I was good at it, until I was able to consistently make sales every single day. And then once I had leads in my hand, now it was easier. And that was kind of a turning point for me because then I learned, how to respect that lead and how important that lead was going to be to my success. Because going to knock on 100 doors to get maybe one person, hopefully, to maybe let you in. Dude, that's hard, and to finally have someone that's actually interested, it made my job so much easier, made me appreciate those leads. And at that point, I know how to talk to people. So that, like, sitting down and presenting the product and making that sale was never a big issue for me. It was getting that opportunity to sit down and talk with them, So once I kind of got to that point, it took me almost a whole year to write my first month that I did $10,000 in production. I mean, nowadays we got people like Jen and Bianca doing it in 2 days or a day.
Right.
And I struggled to do that in an entire month, and it took me a whole year almost to figure it out. But once I figured out how to do 10,000, I'm like, okay, if I could do 10, I could do 12. And if I could do 12, I could do 15. And if I could do 15, I could do 20. Back when I was producing 20,000, you were the man, So that first year that I figured it out, I did over 240,000 of personal production. And at that point, I really understood the business.
So you talk a little bit about when you went door knocking, right? You put down the leads for a little bit because you got over your lead, or your lead balance got too high. Yeah. And you said there's a turning point. Do you think it had to do with, the skills you learned door knocking, or the mindset, like, switch? And like, you know what, dude, I'm doing whatever it takes to be successful, and that helped you push through?
Both.
Because I truly feel like once you get to that point where we hire agents all the time, and bring on agents, they have these great ideas and they have these goals and everything they want to do, but it's like, okay, I want to have what you have, but I don't want to work past 5. I don't want to work Saturdays and Sundays, and Wednesdays I got to bring the kids to school. Right. So like they have these limits that stop them from being successful. And to me, when I hear you say that, listen, I'm parking my car, I'm knocking on doors, I'm making this happen. It's like you took every limit out. Yeah. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, I'm only working leads. It's like, no, whatever it takes now. And I feel like that's what gave you that drive.
Yeah, definitely part of it. I mean, Kent interviewed our girls one day. Uh-huh. And they kind of called it the dark ages. Michelle and Rosa called it. Because they didn't see us at all, And it's like there was a time where, like, I missed everything. I missed ball games, I missed dinners, I missed school events, I missed literally everything. But I knew it was temporary, and again, you do what you got to do, because I thought, okay, well, I can either go to these events and not be able to provide for my family, or I can miss some of this stuff temporarily to be able to give my family the life that they truly deserve, And it was rough, because there was a long time I'm out here. I'm knocking on doors in neighborhoods that have dirt instead of grass. My shoes are dirty. I'm like, what am I doing? I questioned myself a million times. But again, in the back of my mind, I knew that there was people making a crap load of money in this business, and I knew that they were no better than me, So I just I always said that I was like dumb enough and smart enough at the same time.
I understand that.
And it just worked. And I say smart enough to know that people were making money and I can do it, but dumb enough to like what?
What am I doing?
What am I doing here?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. People say, like, Dave, I want what you have. I was like, no problem. Real simple. Just cancel your plans for the next 2 years.
Exactly.
And they hear that and think that's crazy. That's nuts, right? But 2 years is like a drop in the bucket.
When you look back, it's quick.
Right. When you look back, it's quick.
In the moment, it's like,
sucks.
It takes forever. But I think if you look at the first 2 years of your career here, that had a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
My first, same thing. It takes a couple of years to really get going, but if you can get through, and it's really that first year, I think with the way that we're doing things nowadays and with the tools and resources that we have, it don't take 2 years anymore. It takes about a year. Right. You get through that first year, like you're really starting to make some big strides forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, man, it's like you're a part-time agent, and then you had some time where you weren't really good at what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Took you a year to hit 10,000. You went from that to making over $800,000 last year.
Yeah, just about 3,000 shy of 900 grand.
Okay,
so, yeah,
almost $900,000. So what is it? What's the secret? How did you accomplish that?
The secret is there is no secret. The secret is not looking at the scoreboard too often. Like even me and you were texting.
Dude, I that drives me crazy how you don't look at the scoreboard. I'm always looking at the scoreboard. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah, because here's what I do know. I know the amount of activity that it's going to take to win. Like, so I've been up and down so much in this business.
Right.
You know, we talk about my big claim to fame when I went from 70,000 in 1 month to 700,000 in 1 month within the course of a year. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we forget to tell the story that I was back down to 70,000 the next 12 months, you know, so that's kind of been, you know, my career in this business, a lot of ups and downs. So when you have a lot of ups and downs and this is just how I look at things. And if you're constantly looking at the scoreboard, you're going to be upset. Just like I think a scale that weighs how much you weigh is the most ridiculous thing in the world. You're never going to be happy when you look at it. Doesn't make a difference how much you weigh. You look at that scale, you're never going to be happy. You're always going to be unsatisfied. Like, it's just, if you feel good and you look good and you're going to the gym every day and you're doing what you should be doing, does it really matter what that scale says? No. So I look at it the same way. If I'm doing what I got to be doing every day, I'm supporting my agents, I'm hiring the right people, I'm writing so much business, I'm doing all the things that I know I should be doing, that scoreboard doesn't matter at all. I know it's going to be fine. I know my bank account's going to be there. So I don't look, because again, to me, like, I know a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy, but to literally just shy of $900,000 in 1 year is what I made last year. I'm not happy with that. You know, I won't take away from anything you want to ask me, but like, to do over $7 million of production last year, it's great. I'm not happy with that. And I don't think I'll ever be happy is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably why you are where you are, right? You're not settling. I think a lot of insurance agents, once they start getting to a certain point of success, they kind of go into host mode. Yeah. You know, and then so they stay about there, and then they maybe dip down a little bit. So what is some advice you would give to a new agent, right? Somebody who's just getting started, because it sounds like you've been through everything.
Learn how to be smart and dumb at the same time.
Learn how to be smart and dumb at the same time.
You know, I mean, just like, here's the thing. Like, we have people like yourself and several others that are extremely successful. Listen to those people. You know, they've been through what they're going through and came out clean on the other side. Like, a lot of people think, they sit up here and they look at people like me and you, Dave, and, you know, they think we got lucky. Oh, right place, right time. You know, if I had their opportunity, if I had their contract, you know, but talk about you for a second. You know, you started off lower than most people start off today, and you earned every spot that you were given, you know? So you were not lucky. You were not handed.
I wanted to be lucky.
You wanted to be lucky, but you know, again, I would tell you, you're going to thank me one day.
Thank you, Doug. Today's the day.
But I want you to really mean it. No, but you know, really and truly, like, it's just one of them things where you gotta, when you find people that are successful, and we have so many people that are from and all different levels, you know, and everywhere in between. So pick your poison, you know, and follow what they say. And you know, people, you know, it's like going to the gym. I mean, you're into fitness. Well, we were a lot more into fitness maybe a couple of years ago, but we're still kind of doing it, right? But it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym today and you look in the mirror, you see nothing. Right. You go to the gym tomorrow, you look in the mirror, you see no change. You know, and it's the same thing. You go out there and you follow the system this week or today, and you may not see a change. You know, and I think a big thing that's always helped me is I just never stopped doing what I was supposed to do every day. You know, there was never a variation in. Now, granted, like I got disappointed. Of course. I was down on myself. You know, I was pissed off at myself and where I was, and you know, second guess my abilities, second guess the business, and I've had all those thoughts of wanting to quit. Like, I've been there, you know, a lot of times, but just knowing that just keep doing what all the successful people are doing. You know, and I'll never forget, I was doing CrossFit one day, and we're doing a lot of air squats. And this one guy's name's PJ, psycho, old hockey player. You know, these guys are just like, they're nuts. And we're doing these air squats and running workout, and this thing is like, the guy says to me, he's like, Doug, it's going to hurt either way. So just keep doing it. And it always just like stuck with me. And it just like, it makes sense. Like, it's going to hurt either way. Like, being broke sucks. It's hard. Being wealthy and successful is also really hard. So like, pick your route, because it's going to suck either way.
Yeah. You know, a lot of times people, they look at someone successful and they, you know, and even when you get to like the ultra successful, like, you know, like Elon Musk, right? It's like, oh, the guy hasn't made, that guy's in pain every single day, right? He's always trying to do more, always trying to do better. I mean, you see videos where he talked about sleeping on the floor in Tesla. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's what it takes to be successful. And I think people look at like success like it's a destination, like somewhere like once you're there, like that's it, you hit the promised land. And I think it's just the beginning, it's the journey. Because the person that gets there isn't going to stop when they get there.
No doubt.
Right, and that's the difference. And I think that's the difference in the mindset. So speaking of that, why do you think? So they say 92% of insurance agents fail. Right? So only 8%, make it past that first year. So why do you think that is?
I think the biggest, most obvious thing is that they're lazy.
Okay. Just lazy.
That's the biggest reason. But I think the other people, it's fear. Fear. And I was watching something the other day, and it was one of them like Indian gurus, like a Deepak Chopra type of guy or something. I forget the guy's name, but really kind of irrelevant. And he was talking about fear and like, why are we so scared of something that's never happened yet? Yeah. You give an agent a set of leads and they're not thinking about how much money they can make. They're thinking about how much debt they might have.
Right.
Or we think about, well, what happens if it all doesn't work? Well, what happens if it does?
What happens if it does, yeah.
Like, and I think we got to really start looking down that road more than the nose and start looking more towards like, man, what if it all goes right? Like, what if you go out there and you sell everybody, right, or you recruit everybody? And what if you fast forward the hands of time 10 years from now and you're doing $10 million a month in business? Like, what if it all goes right?
Right.
So I think a big thing of fear holds people back. I mean, there's definitely, and I forget exactly how it goes, but I think it's something along the lines of people are more motivated by the fear of loss than the hope for gain, And so I think when you put together fear and laziness, it's impossible to win.
It paralyzes them.
It paralyzes them.
Right.
And I think that goes the same in any industry or any opportunity where the opportunity to make a lot of money and have a lot of success is huge, because people look at that like more like a microwave type of deal. They're not willing to work. Because when we put all of these videos on and we post things on Facebook, like we're not going to say this is so hard, you're going to be broke for 2 years. Like we put our best foot forward, our best success stories that people can actually achieve all those things, and that's all they look at, and they think it's going to happen overnight.
Right.
Where it doesn't happen overnight, it happens over time, and the amount of time is going to be basically up to them. How much do you want to learn? How much are you dedicated to getting better? How hard are you going to work? How many baseball games are you going to miss? Like Ron Powell missed a lot early on. And we look at his success, and people don't realize that he used to have to drive 6-7 hours to go to work every single day. And he would stay there away from his family. And he was so broke that his car, to keep the car in fifth gear on the highway, he had to strap a bungee cord around the shifter and attach it. Like, so they think even like him, well, it's Ron Powell. No, Ron worked way harder than you're trying to work. And I think that's this big thing is people forget that it takes a lot of hard work.
It's funny you say that, right? So I can imagine Ron Powell, right, being that kid, driving all these hours, staying in these hotels, and everyone around him is like, dude, this guy's crazy.
This guy's crazy.
Like, why is he doing that? He's so stupid. Like,
yeah,
right?
You got to be a little crazy to be ultimately successful to the degree that people want and dream about. You got to be crazy. Elon Musk is crazy.
Insane.
David Price is crazy. Insane. You got to be.
Absolutely.
You can't be normal.
Absolutely.
Normal people don't win the way we win.
Absolutely. So there's probably going to be a lot of newer insurance agents and people getting started at all different companies and stuff like that. What are some tips? What do you think about like field sales versus telesales? Any favorite leads or anything like that? What are some things that you could talk to, talking to a brand new agent getting started, and maybe they're not working with us, maybe they're working with another company. What are some tips that you have?
So this is coming from a guy that knocked on doors and sold it in the field for 6 years. Okay. Within those 6 years, you couldn't tell me anything about the telephone. You couldn't tell me nothing. I'm like, when I got hired by Ron told me, Doug, I want to teach you the phone. I said, Ron, you're crazy. There's no way. I know how hard it is to get a check from somebody when you're sitting. They're going to give me over the phone. It's just not happening. He's like, Doug, don't worry. When the time's right, you come up to the home office. Just don't stop what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. What you're doing is working, whatever. So I kept selling in the field. The field was phenomenal to me, and I really, truly enjoyed it. Anybody that ever worked and spent enough time in the field has a lot of stories to talk about. We could probably sit here for 5 hours and exchange stories of crazy people and encounters that we had when we were in the field. So for the longest time, the field, like, that was it. You couldn't say nothing to me. I went up at the home office and I sold on the phone for a week. My first 2 days, I was over 7,000 in 2 days on the phone. I'm like, where has this been my whole career?
Wow.
Like, why am I not doing this every single day? When I got back home, I never went out in the field ever again. Oh, no, I lie. Here and there just to train some people, but really true, like never went out in the field again. And for the next like 6 to 8 months was kind of the tail end of my personal production career. I did everything over the phone. As it sits right now, not taking anything away from field sales because you can make a great living. Just for me personally, you couldn't pay me enough money to knock on doors anymore. So my preference right now would be all day, every day phone.
So if you are working the phone, or I mean, so first off, I mean, like I said, you made close to $900,000 last year, right? So you obviously did that because you mentored a ton of people as far as agents, but I mean, you have a boatload of successful agencies that you helped mentor. So you're definitely like the guru on success and what it takes for someone to be successful. And you have a lot of amazing examples of that. So if the agent's selling on the phone, right? Because we talk about leads. Leads is 100% super important. I can't imagine making it without leads. Not that you can't, but you got to work a lot harder and be a completely different person. So to me, leads is the crutch, right? It's a shortcut. It's the secret. Yeah. And then, so with that, what would be your favorite lead to work on the phone?
I mean, anybody that answers the phone.
Anyone that answers the phone.
Really? I mean, but obviously there's a live transfer is like a lead on steroids. Because, you know, when you're selling on the phone, the only problem that you have is getting people to answer the phone. Just like when you're going out in the field, if no one opens the door, you have zero opportunity. Where if no one answers the phone, you have no opportunity. So a live transfer to me, why I say it's leads on steroids, because it's a guaranteed opportunity for me to have a conversation with somebody.
Now, remember, there's two different types of live transfers, because every time I hear people talking about live transfers, what they're typically talking about is somebody calling data, getting someone on the phone, and then transferring it to the agent. Mm-hmm. And then obviously when you're talking about live transfer, you're talking about somebody actually calling into a TV commercial.
I mean, yeah, that's basically all that we do as far as, you know, us for live transfers and all. But really, for me, anybody, if my phone rings and there's a customer wanting to talk to me on the other end of it, I don't care where it comes from.
Gotcha.
That's going to be the best thing for me. Now, if we could figure out a way that all the stars could align and like an agent could just sit there and take 85 live transfers a day, I think everybody would be instant millionaires overnight, but it's just not reality. But I will tell you that before it's all said and done, Ron's going to figure that out, you know? But, you know, so there's really no favorite. I just like people that talk to me. That's my favorite lead.
Okay. And what would
all leads are created equal. Like they really are. They really are. If they answer the phone or they answer the door, that lead's a great lead.
It's a person looking for insurance.
Yeah. Because like that person wouldn't have filled anything out, called the TV commercial, or done anything at all if they didn't want to buy insurance. Absolutely. You know, and I think a lot of people, getting back to why people fails, they don't really grasp that.
Right.
And definitely early on, and definitely people that have been burned by lead vendors in the past.
Right.
You know, what are your leads like? What does a perfect lead look like to you? Like, right. You know, and it's funny when I ask that question to new recruits, they have a hard time even answering that.
Right.
You know, and I know why they're asking me, because they've been burned so many times. And, you know, what it really comes down to is the lead's only as good as the person that's holding it in their hand.
Absolutely.
You know, and if you're going to accept the fact, I mean, you and I both do it every day. When someone calls us up, no, I'm not interested. You don't even hear what they say, but it's a foreign number and you don't got time for that. So you're, no, thank you, click, whatever, knock on their door, no, thank you. But if somebody answers the phone and they stay on the phone with you for more than 10 seconds, they want to buy insurance. If somebody lets you in their house, they want to buy insurance. Right. Like, and if you think anything other than that, like you lost your mind and that's why you're not successful. I mean, if somebody was knocking on your door, David, to sell you something and you let them in, like what? You're not letting them in because you feel bad for them. Right. You're letting them in because you may want what they have. Right. You know, and if you do the same thing on the telephone, you're not going to keep talking to somebody longer than a few seconds if you didn't want to buy something. Absolutely. You know, so anybody that you're on the phone with for more than 10 seconds or that lets you in the house, I mean, they want to buy insurance. People forget that. They get all caught up in the knee-jerk reactions of no. You know, I always use the example is when you walk into like a shoe store and the sales clerk says, hey, can I help you find anything? And we say, no, I'm just looking. You know, but like we're there to buy shoes. Right. We're there to buy. But why do we say that? I don't know, because maybe we're scared they might sell us socks too. I don't know, you know, but it's just something that's ingrained with us. And you got to understand that, that the lead is only as good as the person that holds it in their hand.
Absolutely. So a big thing I think where agents make some mistakes is so they get leads, right? But the volume, they miss the volume of leads that they need. So talking to a brand new agent just getting started, would you be your recommendations on how many leads they should be getting?
They should get as many as they possibly can.
Right.
Because it's going to take time to get through that learning curve.
Right.
And let's just say it's 100 hours. I don't know. Well, the quicker you can get through 100 hours, the more quickly you'll be successful.
Right.
Whereas if it takes you 10 years to get through 100 hours, then it just took you 10 years. So I'd get as much as you possibly can. Now I know there's always a little bit of a fine line of how much money can you really invest. Well, when at the Price Group and Senior Life, when we're like financing those leads for you, we're not asking for any money up front. Like, why would you not take as many as you could possibly get?
Right.
And I would also, maybe work some older leads, some stuff that maybe a manager might have left over that he or she didn't get to or couldn't convert or whatever the case may be. Like, a new person needs to be on the phone dialing all day, every day. A new person that's working out in the field needs to be knocking on doors all day, every day. With leads, the phone book, cold door knocks, like, it doesn't make a difference. Like, you need to be talking to people all day long.
It's like, listen, you need 10,000 hours of talking.
Yes.
Once you have that, you'll be
You're good.
successful. So you want to do that, a little bit at a time, or you want to get that over with?
Yes, and that's just what it comes down to. But it's hard because, oh my God, leads cost so much money. But again, getting back to that fear of loss instead of the hope for gain.
You know what gets me with the leads cost money thing? So for instance, you said it took you almost 5 years to get your associate's degree, right? So how much money did that cost?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands, right? And then you didn't even know what was going to happen once you had that degree.
And it was 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
I thought it was almost 5. 4 years in a summer. Okay, 4 years.
Going into the fifth.
Going into the fifth. So 4 years.
Which is another testament that you don't have to be smart to do this business.
Absolutely. So 4 years, tens of thousands of dollars, right? And I talk to so many agents that they're scared to invest their first $500 in leads, yet they have 4 years of education.
Yeah.
Right? They spend thousands and thousands of dollars on that, knowing they're not going to make one dime during that whole time.
Yeah.
And with us, it's like, okay, cool. You spend that time, that amount of money, and you actually get an opportunity to make some money. But I guarantee if your mindset is, I'm not worried about anything, like I'm going to learn this craft for the next 4 years, at the end of that 4 years, you have a multi-six-figure income.
Yeah, but I think what it comes down to is they're not committed to their success.
100%.
If you're committed to your success, you'll do anything, whatever it takes. And they're just not. They're not willing to work hard. They're not willing to invest that extra money. They're not willing to max out their credit cards. You talk to a guy like, I don't know why we think he's over here, but Elon Musk, right? We keep pointing when we talk about
next.
him.
I'm interviewing
He's probably
him
here, probably between Tesla and everything.
Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see when I interview Elon Musk.
But he probably is here somewhere. That's the way he's probably working on that too. That's some type of bot. But, he's been just about broke on every venture that he's set out to be, on the verge of bankruptcy every single time. You look at any successful person that has a story worth telling, and at some point they were like this close to losing everything, or maxed out everything, borrowed money from everybody to where no one even wants to talk to them anymore. Like it is what it is. If there's a will, there's a way, but you gotta commit. And if you commit, I think you'll be willing to work hard and get those extra leads. But leads don't cost you money. They make you money.
Yeah.
You can write them off your taxes at the end of the year.
Right.
So what are they really costing you?
Yeah. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember you asking me, Doug, is there enough leads? Is there enough leads? You asked me 85 times.
That's because I told you I was going to build a massive sales team. I don't think you took me serious. But cool. So what is it? What motivates Doug Blake, man? What are you looking at? What's over the horizon for the future for you?
A big motivation for me is I want to prove to everybody, most specifically my wife and my kids, that you can achieve anything you want to achieve. That the people that we read about in books and the people that we see on television, they can be you.
Yeah.
They're all, Jim Carrey's a regular guy like us. Elon Musk is a regular guy like us. Well, maybe he's an alien, maybe, but but for the most part, all these people, they're regular people like us that sought out to achieve greatness. And you could do that. So there's no limit to where I want to go. Like, I want to be able to set my kids and the generations and generations and generations to come with an example. And of course, wealth coming along, a huge legacy that I want to leave behind, but an example that if you set your mind to it, you could do whatever it is that you want to do. Like, you can be the person that you dream about being if you really choose to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I got one other question for you. Are you going to make $1 million this year?
100%.
Selling one product?
Selling one product with
That's
one
awesome.
company.
So when you do, could I get you back on the show so you could tell us how to do it?
Okay, perfect. Hopefully it should be done by like the 8th to 9th month. So maybe we'll get done before the year's over.
There we go. I love it. I love it. My name's Dave Price. I'm over here with Doug Blake. And just to let you know, I'm launching a new channel. What I'm going to do is get all the industry experts on here and give you a blueprint on how to be successful in this industry. Everything I know, I want you to know. Everyone that I know that's successful in this business that has some kind of value to provide you, I want to get that information to you and give you all the tools that you need to win, help get your mindset to where it needs to be. So please subscribe to this channel and tell your friends.